Since the 1980s, rumors and conspiracy theories have surrounded one of the most enigmatic military projects in history, the Aurora program. Allegedly conducted under the highest level of secrecy by the US government, this project was said to involve the development of hypersonic aircraft capable of reaching extreme speeds, using revolutionary propulsion systems and advanced stealth technology. Reports of mysterious sonic booms, sightings of wingless aircraft, and impossible aerial maneuvers have fueled speculation that the technology behind Aurora might not be entirely of human origin. Some believe the project is the result of reverse-engineered alien technology, possibly recovered from incidents like the Roswell crash or covert operations at Area 51. While the US government has never officially confirmed the existence of Aurora, leaked documents, testimonies from former military personnel, and sightings of unidentified aircraft continue to raise questions and curiosity. Could humanity be on the verge of an unprecedented technological leap? Or is Project Aurora just another Cold War myth? What's truly being hidden in the shadows of military aviation? The truth may be far beyond what we can imagine. I was never one to believe in conspiracy theories. Area 51, flying saucers, reverse engineering alien tech. All of it always seemed like the kind of thing people with too much free time and not enough real-world experience believed in. But when you spend years inside the military machine, testing prototypes that aren't even supposed to exist on paper, you start to realize that maybe, just maybe, some of those stories have a shred of truth. My name is Ethan Walker, Major, in the United States Army and test pilot for over a decade. I've flown aircraft that no one outside the highest levels of command has ever heard of. Stealth fighters, autonomous drones, experimental technologies that would make aerospace engineers question the laws of physics. But nothing prepared me for the day I was summoned to Area 51. I received the orders with no real explanation. Just a short note, hand-delivered by an officer who simply told me it was a matter of national interest. That wasn't unusual in my line of work, but the level of secrecy unsettled me from the start. None of my contacts at the Pentagon knew anything, and when I asked, I got the same response every time. Just follow orders, Major. I boarded a private, non-stop flight straight to Groom Lake, the secret base that officially doesn't exist. When I landed, I was greeted by two men in black suits, no insignia, no identification. They escorted me in complete silence, as if I was supposed to already know the way. I was led into a small, windowless room. The fluorescent lights flickered slightly, and the only furniture was a metallic table. On it sat a thick file, stamped, and read Ultra Secret. I sat down, and a few minutes later, a US Air Force colonel walked in. I had never seen him before, but he knew exactly who I was. "Major Walker, your reputation precedes you," he said, his voice firm, calculated. He pushed the file toward me. "What you're about to see can never be discussed outside this room. If you accept this mission, there is no turning back." I opened the dossier. Inside were diagrams of an aircraft, one unlike anything I'd ever seen before. Sleek, wingless, with no visible exhaust, and its propulsion system was vaguely described, almost as if the engineers themselves didn't fully understand how it worked. Project Aurora. "I need details, sir," I said, keeping my tone professional. The colonel didn't blink. "What you need to know is that we chose you to fly it." I wanted to ask questions, but something in his eyes told me I wouldn't be getting answers. They needed a pilot, one who followed orders without asking too many questions. I sighed, running a hand over my face. I already knew I was going to say yes, I always did. Deep down, part of me needed to know, what the hell were they hiding here? As they led me into the underground hangar, a chill ran down my spine. It wasn't fear. I had flown machines that could kill a man with a single miscalculated turn at high speed. This was something else. A primitive instinct warning me that what I was about to see shouldn't exist. Aurora stood at the center of the hangar, suspended on a platform surrounded by cables and mechanical arms. Its design was unlike any aircraft I had ever piloted. No air intakes, no visible exhaust, no moving surfaces for flight control. It looked like someone had taken a single solid piece of black metal and sculpted it into an impossible aerodynamic shape. They handed me a special suit, something between a flight jumpsuit and a biological containment suit. Another red flag. Climbed onto the fuselage and slid into the cockpit. That's when I realized how wrong this was. This wasn't an aircraft. There were no buttons, no levers, no conventional screens. The control panel in front of me looked like liquid glass, its surface subtly pulsating, as if it were breathing. The moment I touched it, the cockpit shifted around me, molding itself perfectly to my body as if it were adjusting to me. A sharp chill crawled up my spine. "Command, this is Walker. Systems are online, but I don't recognize this interface. I need instructions." Silence. Then my headset crackled, and a metallic voice finally responded. "Just think about what you want to do." What the hell did that mean? Before I could ask, the panel came to life. Strange symbols flickered across its surface like a swarm of glowing insects. My pulse spiked, even though I had never seen these symbols before. I somehow understood them. A brilliant light filled the cockpit. Aurora was alive. The platform beneath me retracted, and before I could react, I was launched upward like a projectile. The pressure slammed me into the seat, my body compressing under the force. In seconds, I was above the troposphere. "Command, I'm in the stratosphere. This doesn't make sense." No response. Aurora made no sound. No roaring engines, no vibration. It felt like I was gliding through the air with no resistance. Then, the speed doubled, tripled, quadrupled. The Earth began to curve below me. The controls, if I could even call them that, were linked to my mind. I thought about climbing, and Aurora obeyed. I thought about slowing down, but she didn't respond. Something was wrong. My body grew heavier, my vision darkened. The instruments, if they were even instruments, began flashing erratically. The symbols on the panel twisted and blurred, rearranging into something I no longer understood. Then the world tore apart. A blinding light, a deep thunderous sound inside my skull. Gravity vanished and everything went dark. You know that feeling of waking up in a strange place with no memory of how you got there? Now imagine that place doesn't follow any of the rules you know. When my eyes finally opened, the first thing I noticed was the sky. It wasn't blue. It wasn't any color I could describe. A shifting sea of hues, constantly moving, morphing into impossible shades. Purple, green, something between gold and black. It was as if light itself wasn't behaving correctly. My head throbbed, a constant buzzing deep inside my skull. Instinctively, I tried moving my fingers, my arms, my legs. Everything seemed to work, but something felt off. I looked around. The ground beneath me looked like sand, but it was gray and strangely reflective. Scattered rocks dotted the landscape, but they were too smooth, almost polished, as if someone had carefully sculpted every inch of this lifeless desert. I took a deep breath. The air was dry, but I could breathe. That was a good sign. Then the next realization hit me. I wasn't inside Aurora anymore. Slowly, I got to my feet, my military instincts kicking in. Assessed the situation, gear intact, no visible injuries. But where the hell was I? I reached for the radio strapped to my suit. "Command, this is Walker. Do you copy?" Static tried again. Nothing. My eyes scanned the empty horizon, searching for any point of reference. Nothing. Just an endless wasteland. Familiar, yet completely wrong. I pulled out the small compass from my suit pocket. The second I flipped it open, I almost laughed. A short, nervous chuckle. The needle was spinning uncontrollably. "Great," I muttered. None of this made sense. None of it. My training kicked in. Prioritize. First, locate the aircraft. Second, establish communication. Third, find shelter before nightfall. If this place even had a night. I turned around. Aurora was a few meters away, partially buried in the gray sand. But there was no impact site. No visible damage. Like it had just been placed there. I approached, cautiously, pressed my palm against the fuselage. Still warm, but the strangest thing, there were no footprints. I had just walked to this spot, but the ground remained untouched, smooth as glass, like I hadn't moved at all. My heartbeat sped up. Then, I felt it, something watching me. The feeling of being watched didn't go away. No shadows moved, no figures loomed on the horizon, but I knew I wasn't alone. I turned back to Aurora, trying to ignore the unease creeping into my mind. If there was any way out of this place, it was inside that craft. I stepped closer to its dark fuselage and ran my fingers over the metallic surface. Cold, smooth, but strangely alive. I took a slow breath and slid my hand along the hull. The texture was odd, almost like glass but with a slight resistance. A thin layer of something organic, like skin stretched over metal, and beneath my fingertips, it felt like it was pulsing. The cockpit entrance opened on its own. It knew I was there. Inside, everything was intact, just as it had been before takeoff. But now, looking more closely, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Symbols etched into the interior. Walls of the craft, they weren't just markings. They pulsed, shifted, changed shape as I focused on them. And the worst part, I was beginning to understand them. It didn't make sense. There was no translation, no reference. But somehow, my brain processed the symbols like commands. Propulsion, atmospheric control, neural synchronization. My stomach twisted. This wasn't built for humans. I sank into the seat and touched the control panel in front of me. As before, it molded itself to my touch, adjusting to my fingers like it was an extension of me. A tingling sensation crept up my arm. Something was connecting to me. The liquid screen shifted, symbols rearranging as a deep, resonant sound filled the cockpit. Not from the speakers, inside my head. The panel flickered, and a single line of glowing text appeared. Pilot recognition. Initiated. A shock ran down my spine. It was scanning me. Heat crawled up my neck. My chest felt heavy. For a moment, I was certain something was inside my mind. My vision blurred. Flashes of images that weren't mine. Landscapes I'd never seen. Stars that didn't exist on Earth's maps. I fought to stay in control. If I wanted to get out of here, I had to command this thing before it took over. I pressed my fingers against the console and focused. I needed it to obey me. The symbols shifted, realigned, and then one single word appeared on the screen. Authorized, Aurora. Woke up and then the sky changed color. The feeling of being watched grew stronger. It was like an invisible weight pressing against the back of my neck. That primal certainty that something was there, just out of sight. I stood up from the cockpit and scanned the horizon. The dead, endless desert stretched in every direction. But now, something had changed. A fog was forming, creeping along the ground as if it had a mind of its own. At first I assumed it was a natural phenomenon. A shift in temperature, condensation, something logical. But then I noticed the movements inside it. Shadows, they had no defined shape. Just silhouettes, distortions in the air, like the fog was trying to create something, but failing to hold its form. And the worst part? Every time I blinked, they were closer. My instincts screamed. This wasn't an illusion. I clenched my fists, my body slipping into automatic combat mode, analyzing what I was seeing, searching for patterns. But there were none. Behind me, a sharp noise echoed inside the cockpit. Aurora's console flickered, its symbols glowing erratically. I spun around. "What the hell are you doing?" I muttered, as if the ship could answer me. The screens pulsed, the characters shifting in rapid, unreadable sequences. Then a low hum vibrated through the hull, something between an electric buzz and a metallic crack, like the Aurora was preparing for something. The fog moved, not like mist shifting with the wind, like something alive. My pulse skyrocketed. The shadows within it were emerging. Not fully visible, but almost. Just fragments of forms. Elongated limbs, distorted heads, eyes that reflected a dim, unnatural glow. I'd been through extreme situations, 4. Combat. Mechanical failures mid-flight, near-fatal crashes. But this was different. This was wrong. They were coming for me. Aurora suddenly flared to life, the cockpit bathed in red light, and a series of symbols I couldn't decipher filled the main screen. Critical proximity. A deep hum shook the cabin. The system was powering up on its own. Aurora was reacting to them. I ran back inside, throwing myself into the seat, desperately trying to take control. But before I could even touch the panel, the entire hull began to shake. The fog was closing and swallowing everything around us. And now the shadows were moving fast. Then, for the first time, I heard something coming from them. A whisper. Deep. Unintelligible. But something was worse than the sound itself. I didn't hear it with my ears, I heard it inside my head. The whisper inside my head wouldn't stop. It was like an echo from an impossible place, words I couldn't understand. Yet, somehow, they made sense on a level I couldn't explain. I tried to block it out, to push it away, but it was like ignoring a needle buried deep in my skull. Aurora's console flashed erratically. Red lights, symbols I didn't recognize, yet they gave me an odd sensation. Not danger, a warning. The ship was trying to tell me something. I dropped into the cockpit, breathing hard while the shadows outside stirred in the mist, creeping closer but never fully visible. Aurora felt it too. She didn't want to be here. I ran my fingers across the panel, and for the first time it responded before I even thought about what I wanted to do. The symbols rearranged. A new screen appeared. It was a hidden file, something that had never been accessible before. Like the system had been programmed to reveal it only at the right moment. Ultra Black Protocol, classified file. Project Aurora, Phase 4. Pilot records. Commander James Holloway. Status, missing. Captain Miguel Rivas. Status, missing Lieutenant Sarah Donovan. Status, missing Major Ethan Walker. Status, in progress. My eyes froze on my own name. In progress. A chill ran down my spine. I scrolled through the data, scanning fragmented mission reports. None of it made sense at first, until everything did. Aurora wasn't just a military experiment. She was a test, a project built on recovered technology, something the government didn't fully understand. They were trying to figure it out, and they used pilots as test subjects. I wasn't the first to sit in this cockpit, but I was the only one still alive to read this message. I kept scrolling. The screen flickered, the ship vibrating around me, like it was becoming unstable. There was a pattern. Every previous pilot had been sent on similar tests. Every single one vanished from our reality. None came back. But I was still here, still breathing. And then, at the bottom of the file, one final warning: do not attempt to return. Ice shot through my veins, my stomach twisted. Outside, the shadows stopped moving. They were waiting. And now I knew exactly what for. The warning on the console burned itself into my mind. Do not attempt to return. My heart hammered so hard I could feel the blood pounding in my ears. What the hell did that mean? Was I trapped here, destined to vanish like the others? No, I refused to accept that. Aurora began to shake. I looked around. Reality was wrong. The sky flickered like a broken screen. The horizon trembled, and the shadows in the mist dissolved and reappeared in different places, like they were caught in an impossible loop. The ground beneath me vibrated. Small cracks spread through the sand, but they weren't normal cracks. It was like shattered glass. A crushing pressure built inside my chest, like I was being sucked into myself. My vision darkened. A deafening ringing filled my skull. And then, bam! Aurora's cockpit flashed red. A message scrambled across the screen, symbols rearranging too fast to read. The ship was failing. No, not now! I forced my mind to focus on the controls. I had to get out of here, somehow. The system flashed again. A new message, like Aurora was trying to warn me. Attempting return. Imminent collapse. My body grew heavier. Gravity was intensifying. My breath grew shallow. My muscles began to fail. It felt like something was crushing me, like I was being pulled out of existence. And then, the cracks in the ground split open. Beneath the smooth surface, there was nothing. Just a deep, pulsing void. A black hole waiting to swallow me. Aurora's alarm screamed. Another message flashed. Stabilization impossible. My eyes raced across the console, searching for any way out. There had to be something, anything. Then a final command flickered on the screen. Escape protocol activated. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know where it would take me, but it was the only option. Without thinking, I hit the command. Everything shattered. The pressure spiked to an unbearable level. The sky cracked. The ground collapsed. The last thing I felt was Aurora sealing around me, the metal fusing to my body. The sensation of being pulled into something far bigger than I could comprehend. And then total darkness. The void swallowed me whole. For a moment, or maybe an eternity, there was nothing, no sound, no light, no body, just absolute emptiness. Then, like an electric shock ripping through my mind, Aurora woke up. The console flickered frantically, symbols scrambling, changing too fast to read. Alarms screamed in a language I didn't know, but somehow understood. Reality structure compromised. Critical instability. Escape impossible. Aurora was telling me there was no way back. But I wasn't going to die here. I forced my body to move, fighting against the sensation of being pulled in every direction at once. Aurora resisted my commands, shuddering around me, fighting against something unseen. Then a single symbol flashed on the console. Not an alert, not an error, a command. I didn't know what it meant, but I felt it was my only option. I shut my eyes, head pounding, breath uneven. If this ship was made to bring us here, maybe it could take me back. I clenched the controls, focusing everything on one thought. Leave. Go home. Aurora convulsed violently. The screens flashed, the symbols spun like living gears. The fuselage glowed. Heat surged through the cockpit, and then the world exploded into light. I felt my body slam into the seat. The pressure was unbearable, every bone in my body vibrating like glass about to shatter. Reality twisted, spun, shattered, collapsed. Then, impact. A brutal shockwave. Sand exploded, a distant thunderclap. And then, silence. I gasped for air. My lungs burned, my eyes stung. The smell of dust and jet fuel filled my senses. I opened my eyes. The sky was blue. The sun blazed overhead. The horizon was flat, familiar. The Nevada desert. I was back. My fingers trembled as I let go of the controls. Aurora's console flickered weakly, its lights dimming, like it was dying. I tried to process it. What happened? How much time had passed? Before I could think, my radio crackled in my helmet. "Walker, this is command." The voice was full of static. "Do you copy?" I swallowed hard. "This is Walker." My voice was weak, raw. I'm back." There was muffled chatter on the other end. Then, a colder, more controlled voice came through. "Stay where you are. A team is en route." I leaned back in my seat, closed my eyes. Something told me this wasn't over. The radio still crackled in my helmet. I could hear the control tower's orders, the distant rumble of helicopters approaching. But something was wrong. The air felt heavy, like the entire desert was pressing down on my chest. My body was still here, but my mind wasn't alone anymore. Then came the sound. A wave of static tore through my skull, vibrating in the deepest parts of my bones. My instinct was to rip off my helmet, but then I realized the sound wasn't coming from the radio. It was inside my head. Whispers, soft at first, a distant murmur like voices speaking at the end of a dark hallway. A language I didn't recognize, but somehow I understood. This wasn't the government. This wasn't human. They were speaking to me. My vision flickered. For a split second, the Nevada desert disappeared. Instead, I saw stars that didn't belong to our sky, planet split in. Half-lights moving through the void, ancient intelligences watching, waiting. The whispers grew louder, voices layered over each other, repeating words that seemed to bend the space around me. And then, the words took form. You crossed over. I saw a shiver ran down my spine. You heard what you were not meant to hear. I fought against the sound, trying to pull my mind back to reality. But the voice continued. And now, they know you are here. My body froze. Who are they? My muscles locked. My breath faltered. It felt like gravity had doubled, pulling me into something I couldn't see yet. Then I noticed it. The desert was too quiet, no wind, no distant hum of engines, nothing. The helicopters? Gone. I turned my head. The world looked off, like a flawed copy of reality. The sunlight was too pale. The shadows of the rocks were wrong. A small, almost imperceptible difference, but horribly, unmistakably wrong. And then, the final thing. The voices said before vanishing, "You have not been chosen, but they are coming." My vision snapped back. The weight lifted. Sound rushed back into the world. My radio screeched with frantic commands. Everything looked normal again. But I knew nothing would ever be normal again. The voices vanished. The world was back to normal. But I knew that wasn't true. My body still shook. My mind still echoed with those impossible words. You saw what you weren't meant to see. Now, they know that you know. The hot desert wind blew against my face, kicking up dust around me. Behind me, the Aurora sat in silence, its dark fuselage reflecting the sunlight in a way that felt wrong, almost as if it didn't belong here. And maybe it didn't. My hand trembled as I touched my helmet. The radio finally stabilized, and commands. Voice came through clearer now. "Walker, stay where you are. Recovery team is inbound." I lifted my eyes to the horizon. Small black dots appeared in the distance, growing rapidly. Helicopters. They were coming, but they weren't what worried me. The desert was still too quiet. Not normal quiet, but a void. Like everything around me was suspended in time, waiting. And then, I felt it. A presence, not a shadow, not something I could see. Just the absolute certainty that something was there, watching. A chill crawled up my spine. Every instinct in me screamed not to look back, but I did. The Aurora hadn't moved. It was exactly where I left it, but something about it was different, like it wasn't alone. The space around the aircraft looked distorted, like something was there, waiting to be seen. I swallowed hard, my pulse spiked, and then the voices returned. But this time, it was just one voice. Low, cold, familiar. They are coming. The helicopters were close now. I could see military insignias, flashing lights. They would take me back, ask questions, craft some explanation. But none of that mattered anymore. Because now I knew the truth. The government was never the real problem. They never understood. They were just trying to control something that was never meant for us. And now that I had seen, now that I had heard, I was part of it. The radio crackled again. "Walker, hold your position. We're 2 minutes out." I looked at the Aurora. The distortion around it pulsed, almost imperceptible. But I knew it was there, and I knew this wasn't over. Maybe it never would be. Maybe I brought something back with me. The Aurora program remains one of the greatest mysteries in military aviation. With reports of silent hypersonic aircraft, revolutionary stealth technology, and even hints of reverse-engineered alien technology, this story raises more questions than answers. The US government has never officially confirmed its existence, but evidence and testimonies continue to fuel the debate. What's really happening in the shadows of top-secret programs? Are we on the brink of a technological revolution hidden from the public? If you enjoyed this video and want more content about mysteries, conspiracies, and classified technology, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, turn on notifications. So you don't miss the next videos, share this content with your friends, and let us know in the comments.